After the end of Harry Potter, the fate of the characters isn't generally clear. But let's face it, some of the storylines remained in the dark. There are a lot of dark spots left in relation to such a character as Dolores Umbridge. So today, we will try to figure out what really happened to Dolores Umbridge. Umbridge is an absolute evil within the Harry Potter storyline. She has even less reason to hurt people than Voldemort, but meanwhile, she still does the most disgusting things. Therefore, many fans longed for Umbridge to be executed or imprisoned for life in Azkaban. It is also not entirely clear to what extent justice was done in the Forbidden Forest. How did the Centaurs get even with Dolores, and why did she always look back when someone clattered next to her? Let's figure it out. First, let's try to figure out what happened to Umbridge in the Forbidden Forest. To begin with, her conflict with Centaurs was, on the one hand, from scratch, and on the other hand, had deep roots. In their skirmish, Dolores indicated a penchant for ideology with a clear hierarchy of creatures, and where the origin of wizards makes a big difference. For her, centaurs were inferior creatures compared to wizards. All Umbridge's anger comes from childhood, or rather from the situation that developed in her family. Dolores was born into a very common type of family, where one of her parents was Muggle. Dolores' mother came from a Muggle family, while her father, Orford Umbridge, was from a family of wizards. The relationship between them did not last very long, and apparently the starting point was the birth of a younger brother of Dolores, who was a squib. One way or another, Umbridges tried to preserve integrity of a family for a long time, but there was no love and respect among them, so at one point Ellen disappeared from the house with her son, leaving Dolores and her father to live together. During this period of time, Umbridge had every chance to become angry with the closest people of hers, her family. According to Dolores, only by his very existence her brother was guilty for the breakdown of her parents' marriage. In this context, it is quite significant that the closest person to Dolores at Hogwarts was Filch. By the way, some viewers believe that they not only had a mutually beneficial relationship based on power, but it also contained some romantic elements. At least, Filch was clearly attracted to Umbridge's management methods, and she was attracted by Argus's obedience. However, let's get back to the family. Dolores blamed her mother for the origin, which she considered to be the reason for her brother to be the squib. Ellen also was unkempt and flighty, but this is easily explained by an unhappy relationship with her spouse, who could well have affairs. After Umbridge's mother escaped to the Muggle Society, Umbridge started to blame her even more, so it became a difficult task for the young lady to trust anyone at all. Therefore, a successful behavior model for Dolores became secrecy and manipulation. Finally, Dolores' father was accused by her for a lack of ambition and family breakdown. Despite a good magical background, he had a weakness to get into the marriage where Dolores had the misfortune to be born. All in all, the hatred for the creatures with a different origin, squibs, and Muggle-borns, based on unfortunate experience of the family, was developed by Dolores, and it was only intensifying over the time. It is the reason why Dolores could allow herself the most violent threats towards the Centaurs. Also, there is a suspicion that even after the Centaurs dragged her into the forest, she was not ready to bring her apologies and to realize all the weakness of her beliefs. But what could the Centaurs do? It is absolutely obvious that they were not going to kill her right away, at least without something like a cord. As we might remember, when they tried to beat Firenze, he managed to escape. So I believe there could be an anger-driven attempt to trample Umbridge as well. But if this was possible, then why drag her into the thicket of the forest? Obviously, the Centaurs would start trampling the hated and possessed witch right where the fight took place, and she would hardly survive. Let's pay attention that, despite the reader's sensations, very little time passed between the moment Umbridge was dragged into the thicket and Dumbledore's return to Hogwarts, so Albus was able to reach the forest quick enough. However, he most likely did it only after settling all other matters. So, the Centaurs had enough time to deal with Umbridge the way they considered acceptable, by committing any kind of bullying, or even by killing her. It is unlikely that Umbridge was left alone. A year later, at Dumbledore's funeral, she showed all the signs of a mental disorder. It can be assumed that the Centaurs were kicking her hard while she was constantly waiting for a hit, so afterwards every person approaching her was considered as enemy fraught with danger. We readers have not seen Umbridge for some time after her returning from the forest, so we could not see her bruises and abrasions. However, I am more than sure that she had some. Some fans even assumed that the Centaurs tortured Umbridge in an even more preserved and sophisticated way, but for some reason I cannot imagine this. Nevertheless, I can only say that it doesn't really matter what happened in the forest with Umbridge. She definitely deserves it all. The appointment as High Inquisitor of Hogwarts for the first time in Dolores' life gave her complete freedom to fulfill all her cruelty and prejudice. While she was at school as a student, she was denied all the positions of responsibility. As a result, she didn't like the school much, so now she enjoyed the opportunity to return and take power over all those who, in her opinion, did not give her deserved respect in due time. Dolores is afraid of those who are partially or completely non-human. Her disgust for Hagrid and her dread of Centaurs exposed her fear of the unknown and of the wild nature. She is an incredibly powerful person, and those who challenged her authority and beliefs, in her opinion, should be punished. Dolores enjoys obedience and humiliation of other people. This, with the exception of her partiality for kittens, makes her very similar to Bellatrix Lestrange. Dolores' dominance at Hogwarts ended up in disaster. She allowed herself more than Fudge instructed her. She went beyond her authority, carried away by a sense of self-importance. After a disastrous end to her Hogwarts career, shocked but unrepentant, she returned to the Ministry, which was plunged into the chaos caused by the return of Lord Voldemort. So, there we have the second question, which is, what happened to Umbridge after the Battle of Hogwarts? Let's take a note that unfortunately for Dolores, the people who came to power after the end of the war knew very well about her crimes, so essentially, there she had two ways: either to go to Azkaban for all the crimes she committed, or, just like Malfoy or people similar to him, to try to avoid punishment with a cunning and repentance. She should have been sent directly to Azkaban only for the great psychological and physical damage she caused to Harry Potter, but her talent for political intrigue was definitely no worse than Malfoy. This is clearly seen from her story. After all, Dolores was quite skilled witch. Immediately after graduating from Hogwarts, she managed to get a job at the Ministry of Magic as an intern in Division of Improper Use of Magic office. At the age of 17, Dolores already had a tendency to condemnation, bias, and sadism. However, her conscientious attitude to work, sugar behavior in front of her superiors, as well as shameless theft of other people's success, soon became the reason for her promotion. By the age of 30, she managed to rise to the position of head of the department, but it was only a small step towards even higher positions in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. By this time, she had persuaded her father to accept early retirement and paid him a small financial allowance. Since then, she began to sleep peacefully, knowing that he would not be seen in the ministry anymore, even if she was asked, usually by her co-workers who did not like her, "Is that Umbridge, who washed the floor here, your relative?" She never answered it truthfully. Instead, she was putting on her sweetest smile, giggling and denying any relation with that man, reassuring everyone that her late father was a respected member of the Wizengamot. Unpleasant things happened to those who asked her too many questions about Orford. So, people who wanted to stay in her favor pretended to believe the lineage that Umbridge had come up with. Despite all her efforts to assure the affection of one of her bosses, she did not really care who it was, as long as the marriage with an influential person would have improved her status and security level. Dolores never managed to get married. Many appreciated her hard work and ambition, but after taking a closer interest in her, they could not fall in love with her. After a couple of glasses of sweet sherry, Dolores was prone to ranting about her cruel thoughts. Even those who were against the Muggles were shocked by Dolores' suggestions on how to deal with the non-magical community. As long as she was growing up, becoming tougher, and climbing the ladder of a career in the ministry, her addiction to girly accessories has got stronger as well, significantly more noticeable. Her office began to be covered with frills and ruffles, and she also began to like things with pictures of kittens, despite the fact that live cats seemed too noisy to her. When the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, became worried about Albus Dumbledore aiming in his place, Dolores managed to cling to the very heart of power, sharpening Fudge's vanity and fears and presenting herself to him as the only one to trust. Amid the clamor of the regime change that followed Fudge's forced resignation, Dolores was able to slip back into her former position at the ministry. The new minister, Rufus Scringer, faced more urgent problems than Dolores Umbridge. Later, Scringer paid for this oversight. After finding out that the ministry had not punished Dolores for her abuse of power, Harry Potter considered the new regime careless and frivolous. Harry decided that since Dolores had returned to her post and had not been punished for her actions at Hogwarts, this was no doubt a sign of corruption in the ministry. That was the reason why he did not agree to cooperate with the new Minister for Magic. Dolores became the second person after Voldemort who left an indelible scar on Harry's body. As a punishment, she made him carve the words, "I must not lie," on the back of his hand. Soon, Dolores began to enjoy working at the ministry like she never had before. When the ministry came under the control of the puppet minister Pius Thickness and was filled with the followers of Voldemort, Dolores was finally able to really feel at ease. The superior Death Eaters appreciated her as she thought she deserves. Dolores had more in common with them than she ever had with Albus Dumbledore. She has not only retained her post, but even acquired new powers. She became the head of the Muggle-born Resignation Commission, which gave her the right to conduct biased and unfair trial in which she could imprison all Muggle-born wizards for stealing wands and magic itself. After the Lord Voldemort's fall, Dolores Umbridge was brought to trial for aiding his regime and was found guilty of torture, imprisonment, and death of several people. Some of the innocent Muggle-borns she sentenced to Azkaban had not survived in their cells. In additional materials and interviews, J.K. Rowling mentioned that at the end Umbridge was sent to Azkaban, hopefully for the whole of her life. And what do you think about this? Does Umbridge really deserves a life sentence? Write your opinion in the comments section. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you all for your attention and see you soon.